You ready?
Yes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Colby. In a world where there are only so many organs and so many people in need of them, a case by case investigation is required in order to most ethically and fairly distribute them. Out of 10 candidates for liver transplantation, we as a team selected 5 members who, who we evaluated for liver transplants. We based these off ethical metrics and perceived societal input. To start off, I will be explaining to the audience why liver is so important to humans and its key functions. In an article from the Mayo Clinic states that the main function of the liver is to process nutrients, medicine, and hormones. The liver also creates bile, which helps the body absorb fats. Another primary function of the liver is to remove bacteria and toxins from the blood. A liver transplant is an option for patients who are going through serious medical conditions such as liver cancer and liver failure. Liver failure is the most common need for liver transplants and comes in two different ways: acute liver failure and chronic liver failure. Acute liver failure is uncommon and happens in a short period of time, and chronic liver failure happens in a long period of time and is most commonly happened by large alcohol input. However, there are some risk and financial stresses that come with liver transplants. Some key risks with liver transplants are the drugs that are used to make sure that the new liver is compatible with the body and internal bleeding that comes with the procedures. Also, mental confusion and seizures are common for patients because of the metabolic differences and suppressive immunity of medications. Secondly, liver transplants are obviously not cheap, and financial plans are often used to pay for this procedure. According to organdonor.gov, some key costs that are needed when having the procedure are lab tests, hospital stays, getting to and from hospitals for the surgery and post-procedure checkups, physical and occupational therapy, and lastly, the medicine that is needed for the new liver to function. When choosing our candidates, we who are right for the transplant, we took all these things into account as well as the family situations and output to society. This is just a brief overview on why livers are so important and so serious in today's society.
Thank you, Colby. My name is Kamal. We understand that not receiving a transplant may spell death for a patient, and that many factors aside from medical metrics may go into choosing these 5 candidates, such as perceived societal value. That's why the first candidate that we chose for the transplant was Albert Kastrowski. Let me tell you a little something about him first. Mr. Kastrowski is a certified union plumber who received his American citizenship in 2001 after immigrating from Poland. He is the head of a large household, 7 kids, none of which have graduated high school yet, and an unemployed wife. That's a lot of people depending on him. Modi Gorin, a professor at Colorado State University, writes in Prioritizing Parents that if death were to be classified, it would be best done according to what one would lose. For example, the death of someone with achievement and things to live for may be more significant than someone who does not possess those same things. With this in mind, someone like Mr. Kastrowski, a family man with lots to lose, would make for a tragic death, according to these metrics. And it would make for a tragic death indeed, in the perspectives of his many young children and his wife, who, as I mentioned before, is unemployed and unfit to care for them by herself. Moreover, according to a study done by the Missouri University of Science and Technology, submitted to the Journal of Management of Engineering, plumbing has among the highest degrees of skilled labor shortage. To remind you, Mr. Kastrowski is a certified union plumber. He's the backbone of the economy. Imagine a world where you didn't have any sanitary water, AC, or power. Plumbers like Mr. Kastrowski work to ensure that you don't ever go through such adversities. Indeed, the death of Mr. Kastrowski may be a hit to the industry. We need more men like him in the workforce, and he needs to be there for his family. Thank you.
Thank you, Kamal. My name is Isabella, and the next candidate we chose was Jose Greenberg. Um, to give some background information about him, he's the only child living from Irving and Dolores Greenberg because his older brother Sidney was killed in a car accident. This makes Jose's situation much more emotional for his family because he is the only son that they have left, and without him living, they would lose a chance of seeing their last hope growing up and building a future. We chose Jose because, according to the article Pediatric Liver Transplant Prioritization by Rebecca Mercedes, children should be prioritized in liver transplants because of their lifespan. Children have the most benefit when receiving livers for a transplant because of the fact that they have the most potential and lifespan compared to an adult. For Jose, since he is a young boy, he has the rest of his life to fulfill, such as the rest of his childhood, schooling, and possibly a future family. By not receiving this transplant, these important events in his life would be taken away from him. The article emphasizes that by giving Jose the liver, we would be giving a child the chance to grow into adulthood, while if it were someone else who's an adult, they don't really have important years ahead of them compared to him. In the second article I wanted to reference, Save the Children, the ethical argument for preferential priority to minors in the deceased donor liver allocation, it states that in a situation with limited resources, resources should be invested in times of greatest development to yield greatest benefit. This demonstrates that by giving a liver to Jose, we would be investing into a child who has the ability to give great benefit to society. This ties into the previous article that I stated because they both emphasize the fact that his lifespan and potential are important. It's reasonable to invest into a person who can contribute the most to society for a longer amount of time. By giving Jose the liver, we wouldn't just be saving a young boy's life, but we would also be enabling him to be a positive contribution to society as he grows older. Overall, the ethical arguments of prioritizing minors and the long-term benefits of saving a child supports the decision of choosing him for the transplant.
Thank you, Isabella. My name is Alize, and another candidate that we chose was K7, Sarah Brown, who's a 12-year-old girl who's the only child and is adopted by her two parents. Her parents cannot have kids of their own, and she is um, suffering from learning disabilities, which are causing low achievement in school and has a little bit of discipline problems. I feel that this situation is a little devastating because, say, she were to, she wasn't given the liver transplant and something were to happen to her. Her parents can already not have children, and she's their only child. I feel the parents would feel very empty if something were to happen to her, or helpless, or angry, or even feel guilty about the situation. So I think that's what makes the her situation stick out a little bit more than the other cases. And then first off, as already previously known, we know that children should be prioritized already for liver transplants. And then according to the American Liver Foundation, um, when there is a waiting list for liver transplant patients, there is assigned a priority score, and the score indicates how urgently the liver transplant is needed, and the score is calculated by their healthcare provider based on a specific formula. And then the two scoring systems are the MELD system and the PELD system. The MELD system is for adults, and this ranges from the score 6 to 40. The higher the score, the more urgent the liver transplant is needed. And then the PELD scoring system is for children under the age of 12. So this ranges from negative numbers to 99, and this again is the highest scoring number is the more urgent the liver transplant is needed. And then these scores are ranged by many different things. Some of those are if the person is on dialysis, and then results of their blood test. And then so either mm, so even though Sarah is 12 years old. She is considered on the MELD program. And but either way, since she is a child still, she is still more prioritized than other actual adults. And then lastly, on an article from the National Library of Medicine, it states that organ transplants are very beneficial for kids. They help them live longer, of course, improve their health, and just gives kids a better quality of life, giving that feeling of the kid feeling that they go through that I hope every kid would go through in life, you know. And then it also stated that the liver transplant does come with learning problems prior to the transplant given to them and after. And then some of these problems are um, difficulty with memory, slower thinking, and then reading and spelling difficulties, and just weaker math skills. These all happen from what these patients go through, which could be like the medications or just stress that they're under, and then just being in the hospital for a lot of days, um, missing school. So even though if she were to get the transplant, if Sarah was to get the transplant, even though um, it could lead to some difficulties. It could also benefit her by keeping her brain functioning better, helping her be able to keep up with school, and then just having more energy. So these would help her learning disabilities, and she could also get support in special programs. So even though these can start more learning problems, it can also remove the big things that were causing the learning problems for her, which was obviously being sick. So our hope is to just give her the chance to be able to improve herself with a liver transplant and help her benefit from it.
Hi, my name is Jana, and the next candidate we chose to receive a liver transplant was John Walford, and in his case it is mentioned that he is from Boise, Idaho. He likes to hunt and has a passion for guns, and he was previously in the Marines and received a Purple Heart for saving his platoon in the Iraq War. Also, he is recently divorced with a 4-year-old son. Our team has researched what makes him a good candidate amongst the other candidates. In the article, Frailty and Liver Transplant Eligibility Beyond MELD Scores, Integrating Functional Status into Candidate Selection, a well-researched 2025 study mentions that patients who take care of their body, such as having a nutritional and healthy diet and good amounts of exercise and resistance training, can enhance transplant readiness. So, by knowing he's good with exercise, we know he will be ready for his transplant. With Mr. Walford's previous experience living an active lifestyle, we can make an educated assumption that he continues to live that lifestyle after we proceed with the transplant. Also, in the same study, it is highlighted that overall health status determines if patient is a good candidate because we can use that health status information to predict post-transplant complications and the overall survival of the patient. In a different article published in 2024, Optimizing the Liver Transplant Candidate, Christopher Kay expresses that determining health is now more recognized, and we have to look at the whole lifestyle of the patient to determine the treatment process that they go under and whether that transplant that they take on is worth it. Looking at Mr. Walford's lifestyle so far, including his activity in the Marines, we know he will be able to keep up that same lifestyle after we give him the transplant. So, overall, giving him the transplant will not be considered a waste of materials.
Thank you, Jana. Hello, my name is Jalen, and I'll be explaining why the research I reviewed supports giving the liver transplant to Miss Jennifer Sansui. Um, First, a little bit about Jennifer is she is a 27-year-old mom, married to a husband who is an engineer. Um, she is a mother of two children who are ages 3 and 5. Um, The first reference that I used is the article, The Survival Rate of Living Donor and Living Liver Transplantation Between Same-Sex and Opposite-Sex Recipients. Um, uh, Marriage and family support increase likelihood of adherence to post-transplant care. Um, with this study, it shows that patients who have this strong support system have often had better recovery outcomes. Um, the authors also state that organ allocation should consider the well-being of dependent children. They explain that why a parent who has young children, um, and saving that parent also protects the stability and future of those minors. Their work also shows that people with strong family support systems, especially married patients, tend to have higher post transplant success because they are more likely to follow medication plans and to tend to follow appointments as well as maintain the lifestyle changes needed for long term survival. The second reference I used is the article International Pediatric Transplant Association, also known as IPTA. Um, this study talks about how deeply a parent's health affects the emotional stability and daily routines of young children. Um, the authors found that when a parent becomes seriously ill, children experience stress, disrupted structure, and long-term emotional strain. And this shows how essentially a healthy parent is to the well-being and development of their kids. Um, Miss Jennifer is also actively involved in her in her community, as she often participates in PTA. Um, Ms. Jennifer also in the future plans to return to college once her children are in school, which also proves and shows her dedication to her family as well as self improvement. And both of these sources point towards the same conclusion that protecting a parent's health protects the children who rely on them every day. And this directly applies to Ms. Jennifer because she is only 27 years old, which is not too old, and she has two very young children. Again, the ages 3 and 5, and it it is said that at these ages, her presence provides emotional support, daily care, and stability. She also has a strong support system at home with her husband, which is likely to increase her chances of long-term success after the transplant. So by giving Jennifer the liver transplant, we are not only saving her life, but also safeguarding the future of her two young children. This decision aligns with both ethical research and medical evidence, and that is why Jennifer should receive this transplant. Thank you.
Thank you, Jalen. Hello, I'm Kagan Key, one of the physicians on this evaluation. Now that you've heard the evaluations for each of the selected patients, I want to bring everything together with our final conclusion. Our group began with 10 patients who were all in critical need of a liver transplant. But with only 5 livers available, we had to make decisions that were both medically responsible and ethically fair. According to the Organ Procurement and Transplantation Network, or OPTN, in their 2023 update, organ allocation has to follow rules that keep the process consistent and equitable. That standard guided the way we approached every case. But medical rules alone are not enough. As Bunnick explained in Current Opinion in Organ Transplantation in 2023, organ allocation is also a major ethical dilemma because not every deserving patient can receive a transplant. That means every decision carries real moral weight. With that in mind, we looked at each patient individually, their potential benefit, their responsibilities, their family situations, and the kind of tragedy their loss would represent. Choosing only 5 was not simple, and we understood that every selection or rejection had consequences. beyond the patient themselves. Ultimately, our goal was to use these 5 livers in the most ethically defensible way possible. We balanced fairness, compassion, and impact, and we made our choices based on both the established guidelines and the ethical principles we researched. This process showed us that organ allocation is never just clinical. It requires judgment, empathy, and a commitment to doing what is right with very limited resources. Thank you for listening.